Morning, TR.
Not getting into the roster thing, but I just looked last night. Greg Bird and Ronald Guzman are struggling. What's your level of concern about those two young
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hopeful that one of them would kind of take it and run with it. As it stands right now, we haven't really been able to. Nobody's really distanced themselves in that race. So clearly, we need obviously a first baseman with. I feel pretty confident with Frazier over there. If either one of those guys starts to pick it up a little bit, they could find themselves, kind of taking on that role, especially with the left-handed bat. We need that. So it's unfortunate. I know both of them are really, probably trying too hard at this point. Birdie seems to, be a little bit better. Guzzi's really working to try to figure some things out, but that's going to take some time. But Birdie has been hitting the ball hard, the last couple of games, last 3 or 4 days, I guess. But yeah, it's I feel for them because I know they're both good kids and they're both trying really hard to make the team, but it's just it's not showing up.
The other guy got scratched last night was Blake Swihart. He's always been kind of a mysterious guy. Not based on what you guys are going to do with him. You guys seem to be determined to take a look at him, but that really hasn't manifested itself. I'm just curious what your feeling is on him at this point.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because he's got a little bit of a thumb issue that keeps coming back. When he catches, it's been it was pretty sore yesterday. So we felt like it wasn't responsible to have him out there trying to hit, and he wants to make the team. Obviously, he wants to play well, but he couldn't really do it yesterday. So it's unfortunate because he has missed a little bit of time. But we all love him. I mean, he's a good kid. He works hard. He does everything we want. But I would like to get a little bit more of a look for sure.
Was the thumb, last question, was the thumb a result of catching?
Yeah. Yeah, I was bothering him when he was catching.
Okay, thank you.
Next question, please. Jeff?
Hey, I know Danny Santana hates playing first base, but you have a lot of outfielders. Is Santana at all an option at first base?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if we got to that point, for sure. Like I said, I feel pretty comfortable with Todd over there. I kind of want Todd's bat in the lineup. If it came down to it, though, if Todd's struggling or gets hurt, I think as much as Danny doesn't like it, we would definitely put him there. We just talked about that actually this morning. So we could do that, or we could put Solak at first base. Danny's probably got more experience there just from last year, but there are some other options for sure.
All right, and I guess this is an entirely different scenario for you guys having to make roster decisions. How hard has it been the last few weeks? Just the evaluation standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's unfair, in a lot of ways, but that's just what we're dealing with. I feel bad, but at the same time, it's there's nothing else we can do. I applaud our guys for coming in ready. That was the biggest thing. I told them many times throughout this process, there's a good chance that we're not going to be able to evaluate you the way we'd like to. So the urgency of when we arrive to camp, we'd like you to be ready to go. However, you have to do that. Try to be as prepared as possible because, we're only evaluating you on 2 outings or 10 or 15 at bats. That's all we have to go by, unfortunately. And I was really honest. Our staff was really honest with our players about that, and they took that challenge on. And a lot of guys came in ready. And you can see some guys were actually better this time than they were the first time around.
Thank you.
Other questions, please, Chris.
To go back to TR's question on Guzman and Bird, just on Guzman specifically, because the defense is still there. What is missing? Like, what's the one thing that he's really missing, or the most prominent thing that he's missing right now? Is it something mental, or is he just not staying in the strike zone? Just what's the one thing that's really sticking out?
I think it's just consistency, but there's a lot that goes into consistency. So swing mechanics, kind of lead to the lack of mental stability. Hitting's hard. So when you don't feel right, when you don't feel, your timing's not right, and now you're sequencing and your technique isn't right, it kind of snowballs, and you start to lose confidence. So, Guzzi's, he's in a tough place, but he's trying really hard. Obviously, he's been really open to the, feedback from our hitting coaches, from everybody that's kind of trying to help him out. We're trying to keep it as simple and concise as possible, so he can, start. I hate to say he's starting over, but we got to kind of peel back a little bit so we can figure out what was really going on. And he's been open to that, so he's been the last couple of days has been really getting after it, and so hopefully we'll start to see a little bit more of a positive trend in that consistency. It's just going to take a little bit of time, I think.
Could part of it be because he was delayed with the intake testing process, that he's trying to do too much too fast?
Maybe. I mean, that would be that natural feeling, right? I mean, you realize there's only a specific amount of time to kind of go. So absolutely. I mean, definitely had something to do with it. And there's nothing we could really do to combat that. We've had many conversations with him. It just, he understands the expectations. So it is what it is, honestly, in this situation. And, we're supporting him through it no matter whether he makes the team or doesn't. We're going to wrap our arms around him and help him try to figure it out, because we do believe in who he is and what he represents. So we're not going to stop trying to make him the player we want him to be. And we just want his feedback and his commitment to that as well. And I think in the long run, he'll be fine.
Thank you.
Other questions, please? Let's go to Alex.
Buddy, I'm looking at this lineup construction, and the two-hole hitter, assuming after two, is real interesting because you have a lot of options. Obviously, Elvis Andrews was in the two-hole most of the time last year, but you also could put in guys like Solak and Kiner. Is there a route that you're taking?
Yeah, I mean, it's something, I've had talks with Elvis. I've had talks with other guys as well, just about, 2, 3, 4. We need production, first and foremost. Like, we need production. So, I would love for Elvis to be the guy, because when he gets on base, he causes havoc. He just needs to get on base more. I think that's where, he understands that, him staying in the strike zone, his ability to kind of drive the baseball to the middle of the field, work counts, maybe, walk a little bit more, not chase hits, kind of like I know that's what he always talked about in the past. But if he's productive, he's probably best suited for that, because he can do so many things with the bat. The only issue is when he's not productive, then I might be, we might have to put somebody else there, or somebody else that's being more productive, because it's such a critical spot, sets up the rest of our lineup, and if it's a speed guy or a guy that's a threat on the bases, it opens up so much more pressure on the opposing team. Now you're having to face, our best hitters with pressure. It's a huge advantage for us.
CJ, you got a question?
I do.
That's spooky, man. That's spooky behind you. I don't like that.
It's Evan, buddy.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Anyway,
Yeah, TR agrees with me.
On the infield, as far as it playing a little bit faster, you guys think you're going to be doing anything different on your shifts, like data that you have on players from years past? Will you be a step or two deeper, potentially, or just in general on your defense?
I really like where we're at as far as the positioning kind of algorithms that Rags and our analytics guys have created. It seems to be a lot better. I think we're using them in the last couple of days on some of our own players. But when we start looking at the Rockies and other teams, we've had discussions with our pitchers, to get them on board with it. I think we're going to be a lot better than we have been, especially after from last year. So I'm pretty confident in that, and this infield places a huge priority on being in the right spot, because the ball does kind of get through, especially those low, hard ground balls. They don't really slow down. The ball kind of skips off the turf a little bit at times, and you have to be either in the right spot or have to be really, really quick and agile to get to the ball. So it's going to be a huge emphasis for us this year. If we can defend on the ground, with our pitching staff, we're not going to give up too many runs. So it's a huge priority for us.
Just say, like, we think guys might be, using Rugi as an example on the right side. Is there a chance that he may be a step or two deeper than he was last
I think so.
Surface?
Yeah, he actually likes playing kind of deep. He doesn't mind playing in the grass, and the lip isn't too bad. I know as a shortstop or on the right side, typically you can do it. I don't see Elvis doing it just from when that lip kind of gets in the way. It doesn't seem to be that big of an issue on this field, which is nice because you can kind of hover around that lip and not have to worry about it hitting you in the face. But Rugi does tend to like to play deep, so I think he will play definitely if he can, a few steps back.
Other questions, please? Mike Ducey.
In addition to the turf, what are the things you've learned about this new park in the last few weeks that you think will be most valuable to you as you go forward?
Yeah, I think the roof, obviously with the outfielders having to deal with that, getting to play balls live, getting a ton of reps, in practice and in BP, will really help because you can see some of the balls we've missed a few, or Danny kind of ran one time because he kind of lost it in the roof. It's going to be tough for other teams. So we'll have a huge advantage in that. Just knowing the ballpark itself, balls down the line, they get stuck in the side wall, how the outfield wall plays, just how deep we need to play, how the ball carries. All those things are huge factors in where we put our outfielders from a positioning standpoint. So knowing all that, taking all that into account, some teams may not realize some of the things, and they may play their outfielders too deep or too shallow, and we may burn them because of it.
Just real quick, obviously fans won't be in there for a while. How would you describe it to these fans who won't be inside this park for some time? Kind of the defining characteristics that you've seen spending quite a bit of time inside now.
Yeah, I honestly I can't wait to see it with fans in the building because it's just a beautiful ballpark, man. It's just you walk out, it's a little bit like a cathedral. The field is magnificent. The playing surface is beautiful. The outfield, the way the stands are set up. Like I said, I think it'll probably be most appealing when there actually are fans in the crowd, just because of how close. We don't realize how close they are until we start to hear them cheer. Right now we have no fans, so it's hard to tell. But you look up there and that upper deck is right on you, and I can't wait to hear that. So it's exciting. I think just the overall look of it is fantastic. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's just it's a beautiful ballpark.
Thanks.
Couple more real quick. Rick Redder.
Hey, good morning, Woody. I wanted to ask you, and I know a lot plays into this. Is it fair to say the pitchers are ahead of the hitters right now?
You know what? I don't know. I think so. I mean, I would think that would be the case, but I mean, you look at what we did to Lance the last couple outings. I mean, he's one of our best pitchers, and his two games ago he was getting after it. Yesterday was more of a tune-up for his opening day start. He was still throwing. You still see 95, 96, but this is one of the best fastballs in the game, and he was manipulating his fastballs with his two-seamer and his four, and our guys were battling pretty good against him. So that gave me a ton of confidence to know that our hitters are kind of coming around. I like that. That's what we preach from an offensive standpoint, just never giving in and getting the ball, early in counts, driving the baseball, and then, late in counts, you could see Rugi, certain guys have really made an adjustment with 2 strikes. I know we still strike out a few times, but it's there's a commitment there to what we've been talking about as an offense and how to be productive as a group. So I don't think we're that far behind. I just think some of our younger pitchers came in ready to go, and I think that surprised a lot of hitters because they were expecting them to kind of feel their way into it. And some of our relievers, man, they came in 100% from day one.
Unmute yourself, please.
In terms of the roster moves today, it looks like some of the veteran relievers were sent to the alternate site. Just wonder, guys like Allen and Ocasio, what the decisions were there.
I think it's honestly more of the roster. Having to make room for him on the roster, we're gonna have to, cut into our own bone. And we knew we had limited guys that we could, do that with non-roster guys. So, my message to those guys was, and some of those guys came in looking pretty good. Nicasio's velo was back up. I thought Cody threw the ball really well. It's nothing that they did. There's no negative, message to tell them. It's just, we have 2 weeks to evaluate. It's really tough, first of all, and then second, from a roster standpoint, it's just hard to put that many non-roster guys on our opening day.
Yeah, and then the guys who are still here too. Tavares, I know you talked about him over the last couple of days. What's going to come down to that spot between him, Heineman, and Garcia? Or maybe there's multiple spots.
There could be multiple spots, to be honest with you. It depends on how many position players we keep on our roster, obviously. But like all of them have earned it. I think every you can make a case for all of them. They've all come in ready to play. Physically they're good. Their back quality's been good. Their defense has been great. They all kind of have, maybe Garcia's probably the most powerful guy. Heineman's just been killing everybody, and Tavares has, a unique skill set that, from a speed and defense standpoint, switch hit. So they all kind of have, really positive qualities for our roster. So there's an opportunity for, two of those guys to be on our roster for sure. And we'll see if maybe potentially a third, depending on how many pitchers we keep.
Thanks.
Other questions, TR?
Chirinos caught today, and Calhoun swung today. What does that mean as far as where they are in relation to opening day?
It means they're better off than I anticipated. That's what it means. That was a welcome sight to see Chirinos catching and getting some live at bats. It was good, and he actually ran out his double. I'm still optimistic about. I don't know if they're gonna be ready for opening day, or we would want them to be ready for opening day sometime around that point, whether that's opening day or the second day or third day. They look like they're going to be on pace for those. Chirino's probably a tick ahead of Willie, but everything that Willie's doing right now, it's ahead of schedule for sure.
So, to sum up, there's a possibility both could avoid the injured list?
Yeah, I mean, if they, as long as they don't have a setback, I would assume they're both on to start. If there's a setback, obviously, that pushes them back. As long as they're ready within the first 7 days, we'd probably keep them on the roster. Willie being a good pinch hit option, even if he's not ready for the first couple games, would be a good decision for us to keep him on instead of having to wait. If we put him on the DL or IL, we'd have to keep him out for at least 6 or 7 days. So we wouldn't want to do that if he's going to be ready before that.
Other questions, please? Sam?
I know.
Oh, you muted yourself.
Sam.
There you go.
Sorry, yeah, no, my bad. I've done that a few times. I know you said you were kind of in between 15 or 16 pitchers that you might carry on the roster. Have you kind of made a decision on that?
Not yet. We're actually considering 14, so just depends. Depends on if what we do with our starting rotation, and if we feel like we need 9 or 10 bullpen arms. That's the big question. So we're kind of talking through that every day.
Would part of that decision be if you guys wanted to have like a kind of a backup, sixth starter possible, or is that?
I'm not too concerned with that. To be honest with you, for 2 weeks, like I said before, we have to cut down anyways. So I'm not. Even if we were to call a guy up to replace a starter, we're not going to. Even if it's Palumbo or Allard, we wouldn't ask them to throw 100 pitches or 6 innings. We would probably look at them to be more of a 3 or 4 inning, one plus through the lineup, anyways. So I'm not worried about if they both make our team that we don't have as much starting depth in reserve, I guess.
And lastly, with Brett Martin, he's cleared to play.
Yeah.
So what's kind of? It says he's still on the IL.
Yeah, I think he's on the COVID IL until he's ready to play. I think he's got to be cleared to be on our roster, available to actual pitch in a game. So he's not there yet. So we're gonna keep monitoring him, have him throw bullpens and maybe some live VPs to get him ready.
Other questions, please? Levi?
Just to clarify something on guys like Allen and Nicasio, is the fact that they've been assigned to that other camp, does that mean that they have decided not to take their opt-out, or is that decision still possibly pending?
I believe so, yes. I believe they have, yeah, they've decided to stay.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, just wanted to make sure that was the case.
Yeah.
Thanks.
CJ?
Hey Woody, I saw something last week about the Hawkeye stuff maybe not being as accurate as people thought. What has your guys' experience been so far? Any concerns with that?
I wouldn't say concerns. I mean, we have our own internal, we have our own TrackMan, so we're constantly kind of comparing it to each other. There's always a little bit of discrepancy, no matter what system you use. Some of them, have higher spin rates. Some have higher, side to side, vertical. The numbers are just a tiny bit off. But for the most part, I feel like it's been okay. There's other things about Hawkeye that we haven't had the ability to use yet. When it comes to like position players on the field, their movement and how quickly they're getting off the ball. I think that's going to be available day one. So I'm really looking forward to that because that's kind of the information that I've been, and some of our coaching staff has wanted to use. So it'll be interesting when it's kind of fully operational, I guess, when then we can start comparing it.
Information in game from the relievers, like any of the bullpen stuff, or is it only what's going on in the field?
What's that again?
You have cameras in the bullpen, right?
I think we have to. Yes, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the TrackMan's set up in the bullpen or not. We have the ability to do it, but I don't think we have it set up yet.
Gotcha. Thank you.
What else? Evan?
Hey, Chris, on some of these rosters today, the one thing that kind of stood out to me was I thought at some point in time you guys were interested in keeping Rivera basically for his glove. What was the decision there?
I mean, he's still with us. As a obviously a backup to Elvis. Just in case. I think from his standpoint, it's more of he's been impressive. First of all, like he's been really good for us. I don't feel like we have to have him on the roster to have that backup. We have Kiner. We have guys. Unless both those guys go down, then we could put Danny there. So in game, in one game, we have the ability to fill that position. It's long term, or if something were to happen to Elvis, that we'd obviously need him. So we can afford to not have him on our, main roster, but just have him in reserve, on that Globe Life Park roster.
Kind of rule out the possibility that you guys might look to add somebody, I don't know, that you're familiar with who might be available.
I think JD and his guys are always looking for, additions. He's thrown some names my way, but I guess we're always on the lookout for upgrades.
Other questions? GR?
Could you just clarify real quick on the home run derby? Why did Joey Gallo get to bat twice?
I knew that would come up. Apparently, there's a protest by Team Mathis on that. They didn't realize that because they thought they only had one extra hitter. Team Mathis actually had two extra hitters. So I thought it was only fair that the other team got to choose who they got to hit twice, and of course they chose Joey, and that's how he got to hit at the end there.
Typical Fort Worth. Fort Worth people are pretty bitter up here in the press box, Mr. Woodward.
I'm sorry.
About that.
Other questions? John?
Woody, along those lines with the home run derby today, finishing out 3 days of more competitiveness, just because you had chosen up sides and all that. Did it have the desired effect, right, to make these days either more interesting or more competitive, or for the team to get more out of them?
I think so. I think the effect. When we first thought of this, or when I thought about this long before we ever started camp. And I know a few of the older guys and myself had talked about doing something like this because we were worried about the competitive environment, in this. I'm not going to say summer camp. I did say it. If that was going to be an issue, But before this series, there was no issue in my mind as far as the competitiveness. Guys were getting after it; they were doing it. So the desired effect was, maybe to get a little something on the line, get a little bit more of the, you see in the last inning, guys were feeling the pressure. They were feeling, that's what I kind of the intended purpose was, and to get a little bit of unity on either side. They were kind of talking a lot of smack to each other. They didn't even talk to each other that day. Like Mathis and Chirinos were nowhere to be found near each other. When they walked by each other, they just kind of, glared at each other. So it was, the intent, it came out good. I think the players liked it. They enjoyed it. Now we're kind of ready to, next couple of days, take it easy, and then we get real competition with different uniforms on for the first time, which is going to be nice.
Couple more. Let's go to Emily, and then Evan can finish it. Go ahead, Emily.
Woody, when we talked to Nick earlier this week, he mentioned how he was, when you come in as a rookie or when you're a young player, you kind of that feeling out process, on the field, in the clubhouse, all that kind of stuff. He said he's starting to, feel more and more, comfortable as time has gone on. How have you seen him, I guess, get into that more of a comfort zone on the field and off?
Yeah, he's. It's funny to talk to the other players about him, because before, he just kind of kept his mouth shut, and I call him Dexter for a number of reasons, but he's got kind of that that look on his face. He's pretty stoic, but a lot of our players he's starting to come out of his shell a little bit. He talks a lot of smack. There's a lot more personality there than you think, and you start to see that coming out, and you see what he does on the field. I mean, he's as competitive as can be. People don't realize how competitive he really is until you get him in that environment. I was talking to Ref Snyder today about him, and he's like, man, he goes, Solak is a really funny guy. Like, you don't assume that just by watching him play. Then you see him off the field, you start to see the personality come out. So it's really nice to see that from a younger player, and that's a testament to the culture of that the veteran leadership has allowed him to be himself. Because we're starting to see a pretty special player out there on the field.
Last question from Evan Grant.
Hey, Woody, I feel like we've kind of given you a little bit of a break on this, but it's time to start now with the daily lineup questions. When spring training ended, we were deep into what do you do with Joey Gallo? Where do you hit him in the line? Having 4 months and 2 weeks of camp to figure that out, what do you got?
I think we're going to start with him hitting fourth. I think that's where right now he's most comfortable. I've talked to him many times about, maybe hitting second or third. I just want to make sure he's in a good spot mentally, and then it kind of fits with some of our other people in our lineup in front of him, behind him. So as of right now, that's where he's going to hit. Things could change as he goes. If he starts to hit better, I can convince him to get up one higher, or, eventually maybe two higher. But as of right now, 4.
Like you said, it's more for you if he's comfortable, he's productive, versus getting more at bats and maybe losing some of that.
Yeah, I mean, the guys in front of him have to be productive. I mean, I don't want him to hit fourth if the guys in front of him aren't getting on base for him and driving the baseball. So, I think it's more about the guys in front of him. But yeah, I do. Listen, if I want him to hit third, I'll hit him third. But I want him to feel comfortable, and feel like he can be his most productive self. I think that's really important for Joey, especially in the the beginning stages of his potentially superstar career. I want to make sure he we don't do anything to kind of push him backwards in any way.
I have more line questions for you tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a very short day, or
Yeah.
what's the deal?
Yeah, it's just basically like a show and go. There's no on-field BP, just a 1:00 game. I think it's a shorter.
How long is the play?
It's at least 5 innings, because starter will go 5. I think Kluber's going 5 or 6, but I think that's it. I think it's like 5 or 6 innings at most.